The Sermon on the Mount contains what might be the most radical self-help advice ever given. Judge others less harshly than yourself. But implementing this 2,000-year-old wisdom proves surprisingly difficult in our modern call-out culture.
That's fascinating, because this ancient text seems to directly address our current social media tendency to point fingers and pass judgment. How do we balance discernment with compassion?
Well, the text makes this crucial distinction between condemning others versus helping them grow. It uses this vivid metaphor about trying to remove a speck from someone's eye while having a plank in your own, really highlighting the absurdity of harsh criticism.
And what strikes me is how this connects to modern psychological research about projection, where we often criticize in others what we struggle with ourselves.
Exactly! And that's why the text emphasizes self-examination first. Studies show that people who score higher on self-awareness tests actually demonstrate more empathy and better relationship outcomes.
So, this ancient wisdom about examining ourselves before judging others has real measurable benefits in modern relationships.
Right. And it gets even more interesting when we look at how this connects to the text's teaching about prayer. It presents this progression of ask, seek, knock that psychologists now recognize as key steps in personal growth and behavioral change.
Well, that reminds me of recent research showing that mindfulness practices, which often involve self examination and persistent seeking, can reduce judgmental attitudes by up to 40%.
And here's what's particularly fascinating. The text presents this metaphor of God as a good father, which speaks to attachment theory in psychology, like how our experience of being loved shapes how we love others.
The way these ancient principles align with modern psychological insights is remarkable. The text seems to understand something fundamental about human nature.
Um, yeah, and it builds to this powerful metaphor about foundations, comparing life to building a house. Modern resilience research shows that people who build their lives on solid principles rather than shifting cultural trends show better outcomes during crisis.
Speaking of foundations, studies indicate that practicing non judgmental awareness can actually strengthen neural pathways associated with empathy and emotional regulation.
You know what's wild? The text anticipates this by warning about false teachers, essentially saying we need both compassion and discernment. It's not about suspending judgment entirely, but about judging wisely.
The practical implications are pretty challenging, though. How do we actually implement this in our daily lives?
Well, the text suggests this three-part approach. First, examine yourself honestly. Second, maintain persistent spiritual practices. And third, look at the actual fruits or outcomes of people's lives rather than just their words.
That framework seems particularly relevant, given that research shows most people overestimate their own objectivity and underestimate their biases.
And here's where it all comes together. The text isn't just offering moral guidelines, it's describing a complete transformation of character that affects everything from our private thoughts to our public relationships.
The science really backs this up too. Studies show that genuine character change requires both internal work and external practice, exactly what this ancient text prescribes.
So, in essence, what we're seeing is this remarkable convergence between ancient wisdom and modern research, both pointing to the fact that true personal growth requires humility, persistence, and wise discernment.
And perhaps, most importantly, both emphasize that real change happens gradually, through consistent practice, rather than sudden transformation.
Looking ahead, these principles seem more crucial than ever in our increasingly polarized world. The challenge is finding ways to maintain both truth and grace, both discernment and compassion.
Well, that's really the key takeaway. This isn't just about personal growth, it's about building healthier communities and relationships.
And maybe that's why these teachings have endured. They speak to something fundamentally true about human nature and the path to genuine transformation. Whether through ancient wisdom or modern research, the principles remain surprisingly consistent.